Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I am loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? It's not going to be me. I'm not going to be the one who complains. Things are going great. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. James 2:17 from Chef Zero. Thanks a lot. Let me share the screen. Wow, who cares? I'll just read them. Blessings, fellow Bampians, indeed. Chatelet escaped the Matrix 91. Good morning, gang. It's Trump's fault, as always. As always, the Knicks lost. Definitely because Trump was there. That's for sure. Happy day, Bitcoiners, Cam Fam. 11:35. Nice to see you, Cam Fam. Hope you're doing well. Chatelet, y'all. Chatelet, barely 45. Escape the Matrix. According to Facebook, yes, it is. Indeed, it is always his fault. Good morning, Nolan and the Great Awakening crew. Jesus is King says, good morning, all my criminal and thug coiners. God bless. We love the thug coiners. Good morning, gang. Indeed. Another frog. Good morning, gang. Be the change. Be the thermostat. That is the theme. Bad news, everyone. Bad news. I got to be honest. This happens at this time of year. Suddenly, we can't find any thermometer stories anymore. And I know we didn't get to every corner of the world. We only got to 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 states. And so the rest of you, if you're not from, I think we covered Carolinas. I think we made it to, what was it, New Hampshire? Did we get to New Hampshire once? I think we did. I think we made it to Pennsylvania one time. I think we heard about what to do in Wisconsin, Washington yesterday. There was Washington published again today, what to do with the thermostat. We heard about California, Arizona, but I think that's it. I don't think we got to every single state. Yeah, I need to know every U.S. city thermostat temp. It's more than just the city escape the matrix. You actually need every street. As we heard yesterday, shade, if you're on a shady, like if there's trees on your street, it's a different thermostat setting. And remember, they will kill you. So you'll die. It's so hot that all my tallow is melting. Well, get to that thermostat, soap miner. Remember what you've learned here, set it, and then you can still make your soap. Okay, this is the problem. No one seems to understand. Yeah, it's not that simple, guys. It's not that simple. So unfortunately, I think that the people writing the articles got worried about global warming and all the emissions that were coming from everyone reading all of this stuff. So there's no stories today. There's going to be even fewer. I have bad news about where we source a lot of these stories. Again, we're going to be threatened with supply side problems on fake news, NPC news that we like to cover. So there you go. Nice scarcity shirt. I think I have that one. Yes, this is a Las Vegas special. We enjoy it. Escape the Matrix. I picked this shirt up not long after I was chatting with you in Vegas that day. I went around and picked it up over there. I can complain with the best of them, but I won't, says T-Dog. Yo, yo, yo. We love to complain, indeed. Yeah, you're not going to find it on every city. Good morning, gang. It's so, yeah, the tallow. There you go. I know I'm right. Thanks for getting Idaho. Yes, I did get to Idaho. KT Dog, yo, yo, yo. So that was another state we did get to. Very helpful. Yeah. But remember, it's not for your whole state, right? There's other factors, as we've heard. It's not that simple. Yeah, that's the shirt. Exactly. It's just not that simple. So there you go. Good morning, Bitcoiners, says Johnny Midas over on YouTube. Nice to see you. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Here for some optimism in this long bear market. It is a long bear market. Jeez. It's the no bull that came with the bear. But I do think it's going to be over real soon, and we'll be back at all-time highs shortly. I wish someone could take thermostat weight off my shoulder. CB Van, that's why we have to pray for the AI stuff. We really need the AI to come around. We need this moonshot of the AI thing because we're never going to be able to figure this out on our own. We all need our own. That's what inspired me to write Satoshi Wedding Murders years ago. I was at the thermostat one day and I didn't know what to do, and I said, we can't move forward as humanity in this condition. I've got a pretty high IQ, and I needed AI. I needed that cognitive upgrade. I needed a 2.0 to be able to deal with the thermostat. So unfortunately, no thermostat stories today. We'll talk about that. Suntech is working in Florida. Good morning, Nolan. I slept until 8 to prove I'm not racist. It didn't work out. We can't continue like this. No, we can't. So there you go, everyone. That is indeed a sunrise. The Suntech is operational here in the north, just as it is down in Florida. And Bitcoin is running where currently, is that a real price? I believe, let's see what I got. It looks real enough. 62,000 US trash tokens. I still think we're going down further again. I don't think we're done sinking, but the turnaround is going to be great. Young Tommy says AI is tight. I've been vibe coding nonstop for 72 hours. Don't be like those kids who die playing World of Warcraft and all that stuff. Make sure you take your water breaks and your pee breaks and all the rest of the stuff you need. But we do like vibe coding. We do like vibe coding. All right, let us take a sip of coffee and then we will get into the news. Perfect sip of coffee. All right, let's see what we've learned today. So this is the bad news, guys. This is the bad news. I hate to break it to you. We've lost some great ones in the past, and our sources of news here. It's getting harder and harder. We're losing another one here, guys. Politico's special climate edition. Politico announces new chapter for energy and environmental journalism. They're just shutting them down. That's the end of that. Announcement from Chief Executive Officer Ghali Sheikh Hol Salami. Sorry if I got that name wrong, Sheikh Hol Salami. I did mean to get it correct. It's a lot of letters. So there you go. We're not going to have Politico, energy, and environmental journalism anymore. I did source a lot of stuff there, I'll be honest. So this is a big loss for all of us. Less NPC-isms coming our way, unfortunately. But we're still in the market for other places. We're still out there. There's still people making it. We get this one. Leading report, guys. Gen Z are burned out and they're taking mini retirements as a break from the demanding rat race. Some people used to call this vacation, but experts say that word is kind of a racist. So now vacation is just going to be called mini retirements. Okay, everyone, it's called a mini retirement. That is a new thing, right? You think you're going to Cabo for the weekend? No, you're taking a mini retirement to Cabo. You think you're going to Disney World? No, you're mini retiring in Disney World. I was thinking this weekend I'll be going to the farm in Vermont and it's basically retiring to the farm, right? I'm just going to go retire there for the weekend. When Sunday night comes, I'll probably drive back here and then I won't be retired. I'm going to come out of retirement to drive back home. But that's an important thing here. So there you go. Important news. So if anyone's taking any mini retirements shortly, let me know in the comments if you have a mini retirement planned. We get this, people taking retirements and what's going on, all these things. And here we find out that if you want to take a mini retirement, don't go to England. It's not working out in England, right? This guy here got jailed for carrying a replica sword from Legend of Zelda video game in public. And this thing is, there he is with a ruler. It looks like it's at least 8 inches long. That might be 8 inches long. So he had an 8-inch long toy sword, and he was using it as a fidget toy, but Anthony Bray said the item, a miniature copy of a weapon in the Nintendo series. So it's a good thing they arrested this guy. I mean, they try and keep a really tight ship down there in the UK for violence, right? They don't like violence. They got cops everywhere preventing hate and violence. making sure this guy doesn't have the 8-inch long sword. We don't want swords. And, because it's so safe, the police are a little bit, they're not so busy, I guess, in the UK. So at least they caught this guy, but they had some extra time to go here. Here's another victim of a stabbing event. This guy's Harvey Wilgoose. Unfortunately for Harvey, he died and someone stabbed him. It wasn't an 8-inch knife. It was a little bigger, but for some strange reason, the person with that knife didn't get in as much trouble as the fella who had the Zelda knife. But thank God the police did have enough time. And when, some people say that an event of this kind, right, when someone's murdered, is called a funeral. It's a little bit like the vacation doesn't really work, right? It's a mini it's a mini retirement, right? Here it's an event. It's an event. I'm in the event game. I'd like to expand to funerals a little bit, right? A little expansion of the business model. Funerals are also events, so you can get something going on there. But thank God here the police arrived and made sure that they had a permit for their event. Thank God that they make sure that folks are in the UK. If they want to mourn, they need a license. I think that's only appropriate, right? You shouldn't be able to just mourn like I'm mourning. Okay, well, everyone else has to get on with their life, not you. So thank God the police had a bit of time and they made it over there and they made sure that this event had a they made sure they had a permit, right? When I do events, I have to get permits all the time, right? What's the difference here? Get together, have a funeral, they used to call them. It's an event, and of course you need a permit, right? Of course. So speaking of permits and clarifications and definitions, here we see that Dick's Sporting Goods is being asked a question. Tom, Dick, or Mary? Shareholders are seeking clarification on how Dick's defines women. So Dick's is being asked to define women here to make sure they know what they're talking about. So that's good news. So let's see what Dick's has to say about women. We're going to wait for that story. Should be coming out tomorrow. Now you say, why is it important they define women? Well, definitions are changing. Here we see Dems replace mother with gestating parent in latest woke rewrite of New York law. So it's not so simple, Dix, right? Do you define women as gestating parents? I hope so. That would be inclusive, right? We need some inclusivity here with our definitions. So thank God over in New York, they have a new, now you've heard gestating parent, you've heard, what was the other one that we heard from Canada the other day? Pregnant people. No, I don't remember. Anyway, it was as good as that. Gestating parent. Thank you for that. That's excellent. And that comes from New York, and they have other great ideas in New York. We're in the middle, we're 9 days through Pride Month. And just when you're saying, this Pride Month, geez, I wish it could last longer, right? I wish it could, 1 day for Christmas and then 30 days for Pride, right? We need Pride. Of course we need Pride. But the New York City mayor has an idea. He wants it to be even longer, right? So 1 month, pretty good. And you'd think, a whole month, that's enough, right? No, it's not actually. You need 2 months. We need 2 months now. Why? Let's go higher, 2 months. So there's gestating people out there who want to celebrate, and we got to give them more time. It's very inconvenient, just 1 month to celebrate how you like to have sex. And, I just think that there's more opportunity here for more of this. So good for them. We get this. We get the heat. We got some heat news. We got some weather news. How a monster ocean heat wave could fuel a super El Nino. That is an excellent headline. I'm perfect. Can't find better than that. How a monster ocean heat wave could fuel a super El Nino. So whoever, I've written a lot of headlines in my life. That was my job for a little while, coming up with headlines. I couldn't do better than this. This is a world-class headline. Congratulations to whoever wrote this. So that was some great stuff on their end. Okay, and my last one of the day. You're not going to believe this, guys. You're not going to believe this. MAGA thinks fraud is the only way. I'm going to do the face like we're talking about. We're going to talk about faces today. Only way? Is that the only way? It's the only way. Republican could lose a race in LA. Fox News appearances don't count as votes. Actually, they don't count as votes. So that's what we got in LA. That's a pretty good one. Pretty good one. There you go. Mini retirement to Deadwood, South Dakota at the end of the month. You're going to mini retirement. Congratulations. There you go. Retire to the funny farm where they have the white racist vests. Oh no, don't go to the funny farm. Don't go to the funny farm. Zelda religion, exactly. Join the Zelda religion. Be careful out there today. Ireland. Oh, geez. CB Van says there is a. No, I'm not going to watch that. We're not going to watch that. Ireland, Rwanda 2.0 incoming. Are the Ireland, like, to me, the Irish have just given up. I don't see any fight or anything coming from them. I just don't think there's anything coming out of Ireland. People say so, but I just keep seeing them capitulate. And I would like to see all of that vaunted Irish craziness that they say exists out there. I haven't seen 1 minute of it. All I see of Ireland is hundreds of years of just getting whooped. So I don't know. Do they know how to not get whooped? I've never seen it. No offense. I mean, I love Ireland. I hope the best for them, but I just haven't seen much fighting Irish, they say, right? The fighting Irish, really? I mean, individual fighters, sure, but what fight have they ever won? What did they not lose the fight in? No, they won the fight in Gangs of New York, or they lost it. I don't remember. More Irish here in America than in Ireland. Exactly. It's been like that for a long time. I think Ireland lost all of its fighters. I think all the Irish fighters are American now. And whoever was supposed to fight in Ireland is not really up to it. Okay, so let's have one more sip of coffee. Then we're going to talk about all the news. But I got to stay away from when they have the violence on Twitter. I can't watch any of that stuff, man. I've still never seen that one woman or 2 cups, whatever that thing is about. I've resisted all viral, gross videos on the internet for 20 years now. I never saw 2 girls, 1 cup. That's the one. I never saw it. I literally never. I saw people's reactions, and this was back when I was in law school. Like, hanging out at law school with my friends and all that was just going on YouTube and messing around. This was like early YouTube where it was a lot of fun and there was no censorship really. And that's all we did was watch YouTube. That was our DJ device. That's where we got all our music from, everything. And we were 100% between 20. I started law school in 2005. Didn't really get into YouTube until 2006, let's say, summer of 2006, and have been a YouTube fanatic. It really is the best entertainment platform in the world, by the way. I just love YouTube. As much as they censor and as assholey as they are to me personally and to all kinds of other content creators, as much as they juice the algorithm over at YouTube. And I understand they don't like Bitcoin content. That's their own prerogative. So I'm not going to cry too much about it. But it really just is. I love Rumble too, but there's just a breadth of content on YouTube that's not political or anything like that. That's just excellent. So it's a great platform, and I'm a huge fan, no matter what. Good for you. Some things can't be unseen. Unfortunately, the rotten website came out while I was young. Yeah. I was a little, just wasn't into it. Just wasn't into it. Just had a funeral when Bitcoin died. Yeah. Eastside Tony in the house. Mount Morning without a permit is a slippery slope. Chaos, exactly. That UK's got to get their life under control. Okay, so the biggest story I've seen today. Well, I guess there's a few. We're going to talk about the basketball game later on and Trump in New York. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the first, though, we're going to talk about the California election race. Now, the funny thing is, we're going to be talking as well today. The frame I'm going to be using to talk about a lot of the stuff today comes from my hit book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. Because it looks like all the stories that I have today are all these instances of cognitive dissonance and awakening, more or less. The reason why we called this version of the show The Great Awakening versus the previous iteration, which was the breakup. The breakup was really just about, overall realizing that we were in a relationship with the state, with money, and that it was a very sick relationship and that we had to break it. It wasn't logical, but we had to get out of this relationship. And so it was about the breakup. It was about tearing down idols and ideas that were too idealistic and much of the frame of the World War II consensus. When I relaunched the show after Trump's 2024 election as The Great Awakening, it was sort of me saying that we're moving into a new era. It's not just accepting that you live in a corrupted state. It was moving the next step further, which was looking into how much of the state was corrupted and getting more people to see that it was corrupted. And so the Great Awakening is kind of what we're experiencing right now. And that's why I named it The Great Awakening, and why I think that my book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, is a good frame for what we're seeing. Because, of course, if you look at my book, it's not really about arguing. It's about the necessary conditions that provoke cognitive dissonance and that force people into having an idea and to see something that wakes them up. And today you can see that almost everything in the media environment that we can look at as of today falls into that framework of the book that I wrote a couple years ago. And if you remember the NPC types that I had, it was credentialist, follower, sports baller, and I did talk about Karens, but I'll also talk about nihilists and Karens kind of at the same time in this case. So every one of these stories is kind of waking people up in a new way. And the Spencer Pratt election in LA is just kind of perfect. And I think that this frame we have today is going to help us navigate all these stories because, um, you know, the point we're in this, bear market and all the things that are going on around us, the price of Bitcoin, it's all tied in with this huge regime change, this huge psychological engine that is being swapped, or basically swapping out the engine in a car right now. So what you're looking at is that moment when you got a bunch of mechanics and the car is all in parts and pieces and putting it together. And for Bitcoiners, it's important that we look at this because it looks like we're about to have huge upgrades when it comes to everyone's worldview. And it looks like most Americans are going to be even more aligned, just like we were after the election in 2024. That was a big moment for the growth of this population in America that has an appetite for change, that has a better idea now of what America's actually become, and has an idea of what it can be and what can be saved and salvaged and built going forward. So again, the Spencer Pratt election is just one of the greatest examples. So here's what happened in the past couple of days. As you all know, very quickly yesterday, AP called it for Raymond. So here, AP projects Karen Bass and Raymond as the top two vote getters in the race for Los Angeles mayor. So she managed to make up some extraordinary amount of votes. We're going to talk about the chances of this being real in just a few seconds. But now it's going to be Bass versus Raymond, they say. Trump did have something to say about it. He came out and said not possible for Spencer Pratt to have lost the LA runoffs after the big lead he had. Third world nation rigged elections. Now we'll be working on great guy Steve Hilton won't have results for possibly 2 weeks, according to officials. And it does look like that. So let me These are slightly out of order. Let me just go find it. I did have the Steve Hilton results here. Yeah, there we go. So here's what people are saying about the Steve Hilton one, that one also looks like it's going to get overturned. Here we see, meanwhile, in the California governor's race, updates from Alameda, blah, 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 slash Steve Hilton's lead for second by around 100,000 votes down to 204,000 votes ahead of Steyer. So that one is getting closer. We'll see what happens, but you can see it's the same pattern for Hilton. All these votes coming in way disproportionately not for him. So yesterday, Raymond came out and said, "I'm incredibly honored the voters have given us the opportunity to advance to the general election for mayor of Los Angeles. To the thousands of supporters who knocked on doors, made calls, sent texts, donated, and opened their homes for events across the city, and to everyone else who made this moment possible, thank you." And our fight for a healthier, safer, and more affordable and more joyful Los Angeles continues. They went with joyful. Perfect. For too long, City Hall has prioritized giving political advantage to powerful interests that fund elections. Meanwhile, working people pay the price in higher rents, depleted services, and a city that has stopped working for them. So there you go. That's what Nithya Raymond has to say about her last minute surprise come from behind win. DC Drano says, "Don't worry, guys. It's totally normal for the no-name candidate deep in third place to give a tear-filled concession speech on election night and then miraculously receive almost every Democrat vote in the 2 weeks after the election to defeat the most charismatic Republican candidate in decades. Just another safe and secure election, LA." So now the fun thing is there's a million ways that people are checking into this election, and it's fun because there's just so many holes you can poke in it, right? Don't know any of them that are true. Most of it, just like the Trump election, will probably be fake. But we don't need to know exactly how they cheated. But seeing the methods of fraud analyzed here is important. So here, a simple way to test for fraud would be to check the vote returns of the harvested ballots delivered to drop boxes by third-party ballot harvesters. If those batches have statistically unrealistic Stalinesque results, then it's safe to assume some shenanigans took place. But California doesn't specifically track the returns of harvested ballots. They are simply lumped in with all the other absentee ballots. So we have no way of knowing if the harvested ballots have unrealistic statistical anomalies in their returns. Worth noting that Nithya Raymond's abnormal vote surge occurred roughly when the harvested ballots dropped off late on election day would have been counted. But of course, we have no way to know for sure because California literally designed a voting system that allows unlimited supervised ballot harvesting and zero tracking of how those harvested ballots voted compared to mail-in and in-person ballots. So it's just absolutely perfect that this is the case. It's just great that they rigged the system this way and that you can't check because, again, we're in a world of looking at overall systems here. And I've been saying for years now that the 2020 steal was one of those moments when you see the system for what it is. It's forced to reveal itself. And that's what's happened here. The system has forced itself into being revelatory. Nick Shirley came up with another way of checking in on this. He says, what's happening in LA is extremely abnormal. Here's the vote count being counted and what happened. And that's the Polymarket odds. Shirley says here, how did Spencer Pratt go from 77 to 0.5? California is now blocking the feds from checking into the election. Prior to the election in May, Governor Newsom signed SB 73. The law, effective immediately before the June 2nd primary, prohibits unauthorized access, disruption, modification, or seizure of voter rolls, voter lists, or certified voting technology by law enforcement without a court order or specific state law election law investigation. So they preemptively made sure you couldn't look into it. Here's Glenn Beck talking about the same thing, saying California has restricted the federal government from looking into its voter rolls. The stated reason is that they say that it would violate California's privacy laws to hand over personal identifying information of voters to the federal government. Mind you, we issue most of the personal identifying information, such as a social security number. So they're hiding behind state privacy laws, which are preempted by a federal statute. Why? Because they don't want anyone to look under the tent there. They don't want anyone to see how dirty their voter rolls are. They're filthy, dirty voter rolls. They have no desire to clean them up because the system, the people, power probably benefit from occasional fraud that occurs there. Um, Here's another example of this. Rand Paul saying voting with a gym membership or prescription label, that's absolutely insane. And yet another reason that we must pass the Save America Act. So here's what we know from the U.S. attorney. California is blocking. This was the fellow who was in the Glenn Beck interview. California allows first-time voters to register using forms of ID that most Americans would find surprising. Gym membership, employee ID card, credit card. Prescription drug label, insurance card. This is permitted when a voter fails to provide a social security number or driver's license at registration. Our office believes this policy deserves a closer look so they can vote with any ID/no ID. Here's another fun thing about the system. Similarity in writing, identifiable, unique similarities, no letters. Pictures or symbols can be used as valid signatures. Since we have this kind of symbol on file, it is considered valid. So Kirby, right? Here's Tim Pool reminding us that welcome to California, where drawing a doodle of Kirby on your ballot is a valid signature. So again, the system I always use to interpret elections is what we understood in Bitcoin when we thought about crypto. It's still the optimization for credibility versus convenience. You don't get to have both, and election systems operate just like Bitcoin in that way. These are decentralized systems that have to engineer trust out of the network so that you don't have to trust individuals or people or actions that they take or behaviors or incentives. And so because the design system requires credibility over convenience, any system that opts for convenience, so Kirby signatures and all that, loses credibility. That's the cost of convenience, is credibility. So there's nothing credible at all about the California election system. It's a zero. It's just totally 100% captured and political. We've even got more examples, right? Here's another one, just so perfect, right? So James O'Keefe did a big investigation yesterday. We see that he did the caught on tape giving homeless individuals other voters' information, instructing them to forge voter names and signatures, and offered cash and drugs as incentives to register to vote. We've seen this before, and now it's being brought up again by James O'Keefe. Here, Gavin McInnes says, okay, clearly we have enough evidence for a judicial contest. Free and fair elections are the only thing that separates us from the third world. And we literally had people in Pakistan submitting votes for this election based on the honor system. And it does look like that's what happened. Here you see from that same interview yesterday that it looks like some people say this was a trap and that there are prosecutions coming. Here's Glenn Beck. I'll make sure we get the audio here. Here's Glenn Beck with that same attorney general or attorney district, or I don't know, district attorney, U.S. attorney, the same U.S. attorney talking about elections, saying charges are coming in this case. And I do believe they will be coming soon. Whoops, what did I just do? There we go.
You said you expect people to be charged. Can you say with what, and you feel confident enough you have enough evidence?
I will just say it will be election fraud charges in the next. I hate to put timelines on things, but 1 to 2 months. I believe we need the some of these results to be certified so we can prove some of the allegations. But we will be charging some people. I can't get in too much, and mostly, Glenn. I mean, it's not just DOJ rules, but we also want to protect innocent people. If we get something wrong, we don't want someone to be tainted with the stain of an investigation until we're able to prove that in court. So I can't get into too much, but just know that at this point right now, we're wide open for investigations. If anyone knows anything, direct evidence. I know people have theories and they have ideas, what we need right now are witnesses. If you've witnessed anything, if someone voted in your name and you found out someone voted for you, we want to know about that. If you saw someone collecting ballots in a suspicious way or doing something odd with ballots, we want to know about that. Those are the kind of things we need direct evidence of right now so we can launch into deeper investigations.
So he's not saying he's got the smoking gun or anything, but again, we don't really need proof. I think once you understand this framework of convenience over credibility and the trade-offs, what we have here is again looking for the proof. I think all this could be important going forward, but there's another aspect here that I think is important when thinking about this and analyzing it in that it just sticks out and smells so badly. And importantly, and here's a frame from American Debunk. American Debunk is another student of Scott Adams, some really interesting stuff. I think he's done a great job in um, offering the frames that Scott Adams would have used to interpret this stuff. And here's the thing that he does when he talks about how this will go forward and um, why this is going to change, I think, a lot. This election is a little bit different, and I'll get into some of the reasons in a second. But here he says, this is how you win the election debate. Trump and company need to stop saying the election was rigged. That language allows the left to use their baseless retort, and it works. It's also easy to fact check. No proof. Instead, Trump and his team should adopt liberal kinesthetic messaging. This election feels rigged. That's the kill shot. And here's why. The modern left has trained half the country to treat personal feelings and lived experience as the ultimate arbiter of truth. Facts don't matter. So, by stepping into their frame with their own language, you become the arbiter of truth. They won't be able to counter it effectively, nor be able to say it's baseless because it's a lived experience and a feeling. Challenging this messaging forces them to abandon their own sacred ideology of subjectivity. This is a powerful frame control. Trump and co. should hijack their method and make the election debate an emotional one. I'm telling you, this is the kill shot. Now, what you got to imagine is Spencer Pratt, more than Trump, understands this way of talking and persuading. He's very much a feels kind of guy. He can definitely express himself in this way. He already has very left-coded language, if you will. He's often used this thought of feelings, and because he connected so well with women in particular in this election, that's a whole new field of people that haven't been exposed to these arguments. And this is just one of those things where this frame that Pratt is going to take going forward, he's not going to do what Trump did with the, oh, there's a crack in and I have evidence and it was them. He's just going to go on the very general idea that I've been telling you forever that Bitcoiners have understood and didn't waste time with on the 2020 election, which was it the Kraken? Was it this and was it that? No, all you have to know, like Bitcoiners, is there's no way to catch people. So of course they're going to cheat. Of course. And if the system is optimized for convenience, oh, black people can't get ID, therefore they need to be able to vote with their Kirby signatures. So if you understand that frame and why it's used, you can see that the actual engineering of the system lacks any credibility at all. And so you're going to get a whole bunch more people in the end who will see it that way, that aren't going to be like they were in 2020, hamstrung by looking for the smoking gun proof. This is a feeling, and people definitely do work on feelings. And so that's why you've got a lot of people predicting that this is going to work out, I think, positively, in that it is a great awakening moment. You're going to get a lot of NPCs that are going to be completely red-pilled, black-pilled, whatever you want to say from this. Ultimately, this leads to an orange pill because this is the field that Bitcoiners have been functioning forever. We've understood this trade-off. This is the literal point of Bitcoin. And you can't become a Bitcoiner. You can be in crypto and understand the trade-offs and not understand the trade-offs. But the thing that separates a Bitcoiner from a crypto person is exactly this understanding of election systems, more or less. And so that's why it's an important story. And if you look at the way they're trying to counter this with fake news, you can just see how absolutely unprepared and unable and feeble they are. Here's the Harry Enton, the guy who's always on CNN. Here he is trying to talk about the election. And all they're doing is, it's the dumbest conspiracy theory I've ever heard. Wait till you hear how weak this is.
If it were to end today, which it won't, but if it were to end today, the top two people advancing would be Democrats. Now, there are Republicans all kinds of upset that this is the way California counts votes. The president says that it's rigged somehow. It's not. This is just the way they do it. But the thing is, the person who might be most upset about all of this, not a Republican, but the incumbent mayor of Los Angeles, Democrat Karen Bass. With us now is Chief Data Analyst Harry Etten. What am I talking about here?
Yeah, this is the dumbest conspiracy theory I have ever heard, because the Democratic establishment and Karen Bass wanted Spencer Pratt in the runoff. They don't want any part to do with Nithya Raman. Why is that? Because just take a look here. Okay, mayor runoff polls, Bass versus opponent versus Pratt. Bass would have crushed Pratt by 18 points. That's what the polling showed. Look at how she does against Nithya Raman, on the other hand. Raman is ahead by 4 points. Bass has a real race on her hand if, in fact, Raman is the one who advances. And, of course, the Democratic establishment is backing Karen Bass. But versus Spencer Pratt, she was crushing him. She wanted to face Pratt. She wanted nothing to do with Raman. That's why these conspiracy theories, simply put, make no
They make no sense. They make no sense. They make no sense. So, indeed, you know, you've even got Hakeem Jeffries trying it out, right? He's saying there's just no fraud. It's a conspiracy theory. So already this is going to completely alter the word conspiracy theory, because more and more people are going to believe in this. And because it is so pathetic, you know, here's Walter Kern. And I think this is in the feeling territory. He says, you know how laugh tracks are used to make lame jokes seem like the brought down the house, and how they make laugh tracks sound realistic by turning them down, then up a bit, then way up? That's what these simulated elections look like. They're laugh track elections. And that's why, again, this stuff is turning around and changing, because it's just so obvious. Now, look at how much things have changed already. Jack Posbeek saying here, while everyone is talking about the LA election, just remember that posting discrepancies about the 2020 election used to be grounds for suspension on Twitter 1.0. Trump himself was banned here. That's how bad it was before. And that's why here, seeing this for the first time in history, this is going to work in our favor, is what Christian Hines says. And I believe that this kind of cheating, this kind of stuff now is just waking more people up. This is another great awakening for that reason. And it's a great awakening for that reason, because here's Roseanne Barr saying the best part about California is that everyone, even the most brain dead libtard, knows Biden cheated in 2020 now. So the reframe is showing it in that way. We're seeing this election, and the logic can be easily applied to 2020. Now, one of the great things about this is, just like the Joe Biden debate in 2024, when everyone saw the same thing, that's where this is trending. This is trending towards everyone seeing the same thing. Even Democrats are surprised by this, because Democrats are the ones who voted for Spencer Pratt. And this is why this is all going to turn around and blow up in their faces. Here's Aaron Durham, History Boutique, saying, my network in Los Angeles is entirely liberal. Not the wild ratchet liberals you see all over X, but they are extremely liberal nonetheless. Most of them stopped speaking to me when I became conservative, yet they all voted for Spencer Pratt. Leonardo DiCaprio publicly endorsed him, as have most intelligent and successful liberals. This is how badly LA needs strong common sense leadership. Spencer became the ultimate unifier. If he is formally defeated, this will be the ultimate red pill experience for California. There is no way this election is not rigged. No way. I'll be praying for the light to expose the darkness and the truth to shine bright. But either way, through good leadership or through undeniable theft, more people will open their eyes. And again, that's why in my hit book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, ultimately, this credentialist argument is what is going to finally totally 100% fall here. This argument that the credentialists always had, that their systems and their credentials and their status were somehow there to guarantee results and create credibility. Credentialists' credibility is at an all-time low. And that's why this is just not going to... Okay, hold on. That's why these credentialists, the news, all of these folks are selling the last of their credibility here, and it's just not enough. So, and the same calling me a racist, it's a 0. Yeah, calling me a conspiracy theorist, exactly, and calling me a racist, it's a 0. It just doesn't work anymore. Yeah, nice attempt to spin. So here you see from credentialists losing this kind of credibility, you're going to see that they because they did it for the con, they're going to expose the con. Here's Flopping Aces saying California's machine didn't bury Spencer Pratt because he was on track to win Los Angeles. They buried him because he was already making the entire rigged operation looked mortal. That's the part they can't afford. A pragmatic outsider running on crime, homelessness, and basic competence using modern AI-driven ads instead of the same tired yard signs and mailers started cutting through the hopelessness they've spent years cultivating. He wasn't he wasn't some generic Republican reciting talking points. He was showing people what a fixed city could actually look like, and too many were starting to pay attention. So they moved, not in November when a Pratt run might have made Karen Bass uncomfortable. They move now in the primary because 5 more months of him existing would have done permanent damage to the illusion that resistance is pointless in California. The machine can survive losing. It cannot survive voters realizing the game isn't as locked down as they've been told. This was panicked dressed up as inevitability. When the establishment has to openly kneecap a candidate in the jungle primary just to protect the narrative, it tells you everything about how fragile their control actually is. They didn't kill his campaign to save the city. They killed it to save the con. And everyone watching just saw the mask slip. And that's what makes this all so catastrophic for this narrative. It all makes it catastrophic for the entire credentialist edifice. And that's what connects the fraud to all of this, because the fraud in Minnesota, the fraud in California, it all has its links to the election systems and its credibility. And so even here, moving into the fraud story in Minnesota, yesterday you had JD Vance talking about the Minnesota story again. Like I said, these fraud stories, this election fraud story, it's all the same story. That's why I continue to say that by the end of 2026, the biggest story in the entire country will be fraud as it relates to elections, as it relates to all of this stuff. Here yesterday, as I said, JD Vance started talking about Tim Walz and all the findings from Minnesota. Minnesota exposed the fraud industrial complex in operational form. Check this out. The new House Oversight Report alleges senior Minnesota officials knew about massive COVID-era fraud as early as 2020, possessed the authority to stop payments, and allowed the money pipeline to continue flowing anyway. That matters because Minnesota was never isolated. It was the template. Federal money flooded outward through NGOs, shell entities, subcontractors, social programs, identity shields, and protected political narratives, while whistleblowers were attacked and oversight mechanisms stalled in place. COVID accelerated the entire architecture globally like a virus. Sorry, bad pun. Emergency funding normalized rapid disbursement payments. NGOs became financial transfer hubs. Administrative fear became operational cover, and narratives became institutional armor. That created industrial-scale extraction systems capable of moving billions through fragmented oversight structures while accountability dissolved across layers of bureaucracy. Now the system is turning inward on itself. Treasury, DOJ, Health and Human Services, oversight committees, AI-driven forensic mapping, cross-program fraud analysis, and federal task forces. The same digital infrastructure that enabled the extraction now preserves the evidence trail permanently. Every payment, time step, linked entity, transfer node, and reimbursement cluster. Minnesota became visible first, and now the pattern is surfacing everywhere. Watch it spread. And here we see that JD Vance has referred these allegations to the DOJ's new fraud division for criminal investigation. That is the one that will continue to give JD Vance a platform for the next few months. Minnesota state officials are not above the law, and if they facilitated fraud, lied under oath about what they knew, or harassed and intimidated whistleblowers, they must face justice. And here they expose Walz and Keith. So the new test is when we're going to start to see Tim Walz indictment. Here, American Awakened Outlaw says, here we effing go. There's precisely a 0% chance This won't lead to Tim Walz's indictment and arrest, not to mention many other state officials. And you can put your bottom dollar that all the other POS corrupt governors and the respective bands of thieves are paying close attention. So JD Vance saying that Tim Walz's fraud is going to be prosecuted. So hopefully we'll see what comes of it. Let's see if the audio plays.
I guess now I can make a bit of breaking news because I left the White House to come here to do this interview with you. And before I did, we actually referred this particular case to the Department of Justice for a full criminal investigation. We are not going to do what the Biden administration did and make judgments of the law before all the facts are in. But here's what's particularly troubling about this to me is Jesse, you had people within Governor Walz's office who were saying, you know what, this looks like fraud. It looks like these Somalian illegal immigrants are doing something that's very shady. And then you had people who shut them down, who shut these whistleblowers down and said, you know, you're a racist or you're a xenophobe for asking questions about where taxpayer money is going. What that means to me, Jesse, is that clearly people weren't taking fraud seriously. Whether it rises to the level of a criminal violation, we're going to investigate it. And of course, if it does rise to that level, we're going to prosecute it. We have to.
So we'll see. We'll see. But it looks like the whole system here between fraud and elections, you know, the implications here for credentialists are great. And it goes right into the markets. It goes right into what Bitcoin is actually talking about. And this is the connection. So if you think about the way America was able to create an engine for this fraud, right? It is an engine. It's an engine. It's a fraud psychological engine, fraud-based psychological engine. It's why I always use the psychological engine framework to understand how this stuff operates, because once you see the engine, it starts drawing in with a type of centripetal force all the other functions, all the other outlets that connect to this fraud industrial complex. All of that ends up coming into a financial balance sheet of one form or another. And that's why Sightbringer here says the old system requires trust, neutrality, and it no longer has enough of it. The dollar system was built on one giant bargain. The U.S. provides the reserve asset, the deepest capital markets, military protections. This is going into international stuff. But again, there is implications domestically, and I'll explain them. And there are implications psychologically, right? So in exchange, the world accepts U.S. liabilities as the center of the financial system. That bargain worked when the U.S. balance sheet looked unquestionably credible. It's all about credibility. It's all about the trade-offs between credibility and convenience. When you do this to your election system, you drain the credibility out of your government tax income, out of the systems because of the amount of fraud that is now in it. When globalization made everyone dependent on the same rails, when sanctions were exceptional rather than routine, when treasuries were treated as neutral savings instruments, and when foreign countries believed holding dollars was safer than building alternatives, that world is gone. The old system can keep operating mechanically. Dollars still clear, treasuries still trade, banks still settle, the Fed still sets rates, the US still dominates global finance. But the old system cannot keep producing the same kind of unquestioned belief. That is the fracture. And when you look at the American budget here, you can see why the psychological engine is now sputtering and why it can't continue to pay for the fraud. It's at its end. And when you see the system at its end this way, when you see this is what the credentialists created, this is what all the experts created, the news in some form of complicit behavior with the markets, with the incentive systems, with the psychological engine, brought us to this dead end, brought us to this weakened system. And every day that it loses its credibility in this way is why you start seeing the rest of the world change and why this stuff is going and why it's headed in this direction. And now, you know, the next group that I have in my Bitcoiners guide to NPC management, after the credentialists, of course, were the followers, right? So I had the followers next. And this is going to become a big wake up for them too. And I'll show you, because as we get rid of the credentialists, as their credibility goes down and down and their usefulness for society is weakened, their own ability to persuade and keep people in their NPC lull, spellbound, and hypnotized ends up also diminishing. So the followers follow in a very similar mold. They're sort of one step behind the credentialists. And here the followers are the echoes in the valley, right? These are the people that are always looking around. Am I safe? Is this what everyone else is doing? And is this, how I make my decisions? And followers are an NPC archetype, of course. And that's why all of this stuff about the machine and what it did to destroy Spencer Pratt and what it did to alter the credibility of these guys. There's only so many ways that this can be put back in. We just showed you the legacy media, Harry Enton and these guys, and Hakeem Jeffries. They're not going to be capable of doing it. So the other move, and it's the follower move, and this is mostly aimed at women, we saw yesterday. Here's an example, right? And this is the old face. Everyone's been talking about it today. This is the face question, right? So this lady yesterday with her face, right? they're comparing it to the girl who gave the Sydney Sweeney face interview. Here, a texter says, women are significantly more sensitive to these types of faces, and this is the primary way that women signal to each other that they are about to be excluded from the group if they don't conform. So this is how the follower archetype has worked. And this face, when your entire worldview is based not on knowledge, but what others think, the only possible rebuttal is performance. And so here's the example yesterday. I will stop sharing and reshare because I want you to hear the audio and just see how she tried to argue. So this face worked on the follower archetype until now, basically. Here's Lauren Chen explaining it. Women mostly base their opinions on consensus, not reason. That's why this woman doesn't bother making an actual argument or rebuttal. She thinks that all she has to do is signal that the opinion is weird and that others will agree with her. It's shockingly effective, but less so. Here's the actual interview.
The idea of blaming our housing crisis on immigration is absolutely wild to me, actually.
Well, that says more about you because we've got an extra 10, 20 million people come in the country.
Do you think that if... Do you think that
do you
if
not
we...
think an extra 10 million people is going to have an effect on housing?
Do you think that if we lock down our borders, we're going to solve the housing crisis?
Well,
is that going to solve it?
The thing is, the more people you have in a country, the more houses you're going to need. I know it might sound...
He's really good at explaining things like this, isn't he?
Here's the face.
Yeah.
Listen to me. What a weird guy. So it doesn't work anymore. It's a zero. It's a total and complete zero. And followers, when you change systems, when the credentialists aren't there to back them up, when you actually have to start making arguments, you can see it's just not going to work. You end up sitting at a lunch table full of women at work, and the best looking girl in the office gets brought up in the conversation. So, and again, the women case that we heard about from the election with Spencer Pratt, again, his support amongst women was way greater. He doesn't have the same, women aren't revolted by him as some are with Trump, right? So that was a big difference. And here they deliberately misunderstand you, proceed to make a face like they're shitting themselves. So this just doesn't work anymore, right? What do you mean leftist discourse is just pretending not to understand things, thus making discourse impossible? So the follower thing is not going to work because, again, the follower thing starts to fall apart without the credentialists to back it up. What are they following, right? They don't have leaders themselves. So these faces that you're being kicked out of the group are just a product right now of these people not realizing consensus is changing. And with a changed consensus, whatever persuasion is had amongst women, by women, for women goes, because followers will only go where the larger group is. And if they're selling this kind of a story, if they're selling all this kind of you're so stupid, well, in the end, when I talk about aligning with power and how that is persuasive, they can't call people stupid when they're no longer the majority, when everyone's laughing at them. It just breaks the whole spell. So the hypnotism and the persuasion of this face is at an all-time low. And it's at an all-time low because, again, go back to the fraud model, right? Catching the fraud, sputtering the engine, creating this fake veneer of being the majority that doesn't allow you to harvest the follower NPC archetype anymore. You lose them, and they're losing the archetype. And they're losing the archetype because once you remove the fraud from the elections, you start to see how they really go. And the follower archetype is going to learn really quickly that they were not the majority and that they were actually following the losers. So the next archetype I have in my story was the sports baller. And that's why winning and losing is important. That's why the credentialists, if they use the fraud, have to win to get the followers with them. They have to win to get the sports ballers with them. Sports ballers want to win. And that's why going to this US aid argument, and I see here that Lee J369 says it, since USAID was defunded, all current LATAM elections have gone to the right. Exactly. Here you see the LATAM, ever since USAID was defunded and thousands of NGO contracts were canceled, left-wing parties are losing in Central and South America. Now, she's a bit of a crook too, as I understand. Keiko Fujimori, I guess her dad was a crook. So I don't know if she's the kind of person you want to support. I don't know much about her at all. But she won, and she wasn't part of that NGO industrial complex. As everyone who's covered the region for a dozen years for the Wall Street Journal and reported in astonishment how even under conservative presidents Ronald Reagan, USAID was funding socialist projects in Latin America, I can assure you that this is 100% accurate. And it is a big change to see this stuff, right? You're seeing it. People figure it out. Here's another one. Peru was able to hand count over 90% of its votes and 27 million ballots last night. Elon Musk points out that's because fraud at scale takes time. And that's why I think it's just becoming more and more obvious. Here, Latin America, since USAID defunding, it's Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Honduras, Costa Rica. Extremely telling development. And even more so, right, you see Freedom Domain, Stefan Molyneux say the same thing. South America is voting right because USAID was shut down. Socialism is always propped up by your tax dollars. You need to create that veneer of credentialist credibility using the stolen money, and then you get this fake idea that you are the majority, and that's when the fart face works. But once you don't have that, the fart face is just a fart face. It doesn't do anything. So the fart face ladies are about to just be sitting alone with their farts. It's not going to persuade anyone. There's nothing coming from there. That's the end of that. So watching this election stolen in real time this way and applying lessons from other elections is just going to turn the whole thing on itself. And so here you get this idea again of why winning is so important and why winning will realign folks. Here's Milei, right? For the first time in 123 years, he says, Argentina has achieved a sustained fiscal surplus without being in default. We are one of only 5 countries in the world in this position. Long live freedom, damn it. And there you go. This is the type of stuff that's persuading. And that's why communism is dying so quickly over there in Argentina. And now, you know, this all comes back once we see what's going on with this story, with these elections, of course. We're going to keep applying it to the way those elections in the Central America also affected our elections. This was a big circle, right? We taught them how to scam elections, and then they scammed our election. And of course, 2020 involved the Maduro Venezuelans. We still don't know about this proof-wise, but again, lots of people say that's why. Laura Logan is saying it. Trump went after Maduro, knowing Venezuela coordinated with Iran and the CCP and helped overthrow the United States government on November 3rd, 2020, and the intelligence community covered it all up. So we'll see. We're getting more info on it, and I continue to believe we're going to find out more. And I think that's why this story is relevant today. Matt Dines here mentioning, what could he or his lawyers possibly have given as consideration in exchange for this? And this is the Sam Bankman-Fried formally applying for a pardon from President Trump. I don't know. I don't have any answers. I don't know what the actual answer is, but my belief is And again, here from election night 2022 to March 2023, the Fed turned assassin. They killed FTX, SVB, and a couple of other crypto active banks. Prior to this, Sam had a few one-on-ones with Jerome Powell. Sam's a bad guy, but he may have helped the Fed out with all of that. I bet he walks. Peter Thiel may have personally started the bank run on SVB, and at least that is how it was reported after the fact. Sure, but thinking deeper about this, in power politics, you don't get something without giving something in return. What could Sam possibly give it? Again, none of this was financial. It was because he was involved in the 2020 stolen election. That's my theory. My theory is he ran the biggest prediction market in the 2020 election. That's how I really understood what he was up to, right? Never forget that I was shadowing his products in 2020 and trying to reverse engineer how he was building them. It was an assignment I had from Kraken. Weirdly, Kraken, right? So the world is a simulation. Don't ask me why. I was working for Kraken and had to look into how he was building products. I came back with the conclusion that they're fake and that something's going on here that suggests he's a fraud. And when the 2020 election happened, I knew he was a part of it. I could see it more obviously than most people at the time. There was a moment where I might have been the only person in the world who knew that he was involved in the stolen 2020 election. And weirdly, we started looking for the Kraken after. So that was just one of these signs. So I think that's what it was. I think he might be involved in it. If he does give info on the 2020 stolen election, tell me in the comments, would you guys be for him getting some kind of pardon? Would that make any sense? Tell me in the comments if you think that's likely or not. I do. I think that's what it was. That's what I believe. I think he does have relevant information about the 2020 stolen election. I think Matt Dines is asking an interesting question. I don't think it has anything to do with what went on with the bank runs and all that stuff. Now, it is about, because don't forget, when CoinDesk publishes the article, it is on election day 2022. That's what caused the fallout election day, the day after the election of 2022. So yeah, I did not know about Sam and the election circus. So Cubes, the way to think about it is the only prediction market that was used in the 2020 election. Of course, we have Polymarket by 2024, but there was no such thing in 2020. And it was only FTX. The reason why SBF and FTX became household names was because Trump was not declared loser the day after the election. Remember, it took like 3 or 4 days, and maybe even more if I remember correctly. I remember I was in Toronto when I found out he had lost, and I was in Montreal for election day. So I don't really remember what I was on the Vermont border was still COVID, so he couldn't cross. So I was on the Quebec side, and I drove to Toronto, and I found out he had lost in Toronto. So it's probably 4 or 5 days after. And for those 4 or 5 days, Cubes, you had usual talking heads, right? Like on every TV show, it's the Republican, no, we gotta, no, hanging chads. They were talking about 2020 and George Bush and what was going on and Al Gore. And it was just that for days. And every now and again, they would go to the prediction market and they would say, oh, the gamblers, look what they believe. For the first day or two, Trump was winning on the gambling markets, on the prediction markets. And they would mention that. But then suddenly it turned, and they used that as cognitive closure, as proof that Trump had lost. And that's when I was one of 5 people who knew in the world that Arthur Hayes was arrested by him and Bill Barr, and that his prediction market had less activity than his donations to the Democrat Party, which were $3.5 million at the time. So to me, that was the story right there. Hanging chads. Yeah, exactly. Soap Miner says, I don't have a problem with a pardon if they get something out of it, but Trump needs to pardon Samurai first. Yeah, he's going to. Soap Miner, I agree. That's got to happen sooner rather than later, because that's an expensive and troublesome thing that's happened to Keenan Rodriguez, and we don't want him in jail, not for another minute. I've got some news on that I can't divulge yet, but I might be able to do something about it. We'll see. Or at least I'm trying to do something about it, but I can't share it with you yet because it's a live wire and it might go wrong. We'll see. But I do have a I think, ability to do something about it. So there you go. Need 5 to go to prison for SBF swap minimum. Yeah, Tom. I don't want, of course. No. I mean, you can't understand how much I dislike SBF. Like I was involved in destroying him because of how much I disliked him. And I had a terrible feeling from him right away. And SBF did a great deal of damage to the industry. No pardon, says CB Van. Yeah, I could get down with that too. But if he gives proof on the election, I mean, I don't know. Do we need him? Do we need the proof? I'm just saying what he gave in trade. I think that's what's happening here. I don't think he's going to get the pardon, frankly, unless what he gives up is great. And it would likely have to do with Democrat money laundering around the 2020 election and the fallout with the Ukraine war. Those are the threads that he's heavily involved in. Your show is one I never miss, even if I miss it. Listen in the afternoon. Thanks, Cubes. I appreciate it. So that's what I think is happening, and why I think this story is again going to continue to pay dividends here. And like I said, just being able to reanalyze this, right? So just like we're seeing now, this is a great awakening for followers and credentialists, the whole Spencer Pratt thing, because here it's the same type of forensic proof, right? All the ballots were in sequence, right? Here we see they cannot be in sequence. 2232 cannot have 2233 next to it because they are mailed in and come in all at different numbers. And again, we're going to be able to litigate this stuff in a way, I think, that will help us all navigate exactly what ended up happening. And exactly as I said before, I do think that the everything considered, that in the end, Christian Hines is correct here, that this will actually work in our favor this time, and that we're going to be able to see that stuff. So again, the winning is important because that's another sports baller in my world, another NPC in my story, the sports baller. That one's next. And the sports baller, if you do the winning, right? So first of all, the credentialist being removed and the effect that will have on perceptions of majority will change the follower. The sports baller is not quite the same. The sports baller is trying to look into the it's not about majority, really. It's about what's more exciting and fun and winning. And you got to win, though. Again, winning is the answer. And so Trump yesterday at the game, now the fake news trying to make it sound like it was nothing but booze, right? The left-wing bots got their marching orders. And all the comment sections, they're frantically trying to establish the narrative that Trump received nothing but booze at MSG. He was in New York City yesterday. The left are desperate to maintain their illusion. They cannot allow the people to see that Trump is not as hated as they portray him to be. They cannot allow the brainwashed sheep to see something that doesn't align with their false reality. It's like a glitch in the matrix. They are training to contain this breach, but they will fail. And I do think that's going to be the case. I mean, the reason it's going to be the case is because of just how cringe they are choosing this Nix thing to attack Trump on, because again, it's the same aesthetic that sports ballers will recognize. Here you see, here's Hakeem Jeffries yesterday trying to say that Trump isn't a Knicks fan, right? And here Joe McBride reminds us Wu-Tang Clan's Raekwon started calling himself the Black Trump in the 1990s, a time when you could regularly find Trump courtside at a Knicks game. No rapper will ever name himself after broke-ass Rep Jeffries, a cornball with less swag than Steve Urkel. So just watching this guy, the sports baller is more an aesthetic animal when it comes to this stuff. It's more about that. And winning in this case is going to be what does it. Because attacking him, even Whoopi Goldberg had to say, no, you can't attack Trump about basketball, right? Hell has officially frozen over. Deranged TDS victim Whoopi Goldberg just defended Trump attending the NBA Finals game tonight. She says Trump has been a Knicks fan his entire life and reminds the left that he is literally from New York. This is a miracle. I'm sorry. Trump and Mayor Mamdani are Knicks fans and have been their New Yorkers. That's true. That's just true. So this is not working, and you're seeing this op fail for these reasons. And it's why, I think we're moving into this sports baller world of aesthetics and winning, and because the sports baller, it is a game and winning is what is important. And again, the World Cup starting in just 2 days in America, and people already starting to talk about that. The World Cup in America sucks. Meanwhile, Europore is experiencing air conditioning, free ice water, and free public restrooms for the first time. Nick Watts says, I can already tell the World Cup discourse is going to be so fucking insufferable. Stadium dick measuring, public transport complaints, and political commentary for the next month. The USA has a different culture than the rest of the world, and people are shocked by it. But that's one prediction, right? But I've been following this account, and I would recommend all of you follow it too. Freddie LA7. This is a German fella who's traveling around America as the tournament goes on, just experiencing American things. And it's one of the best accounts you're going to read about right now. It's just hilarious. So he's talking about all the driving road trips he's taking, all the things he's seeing, roaming around Chattanooga, and just passed by the Spain national team hotel. Unfortunately, no one there was there because they were playing a friendly in Mexico tonight. Let me see what he's saying about stuff here. Chattanooga for the night, somewhere in Tennessee, new state unlocked, on the road again. We hit up, let me see. He's got some really good ones. Looks like a rainforest here. So for as many bad takes as you're going to get on America, I think you're going to get a lot of good ones too. Here he says, currently tubing down the Chattahoochee River. Never heard of it, but seems like fun. Using this Alpine roller coaster, Georgia, breakfast, Waffle House, 10 on 10 will be coming back. Road trip in the mountains, Gainesville. The place looks beautiful. The houses are insane. He's got 4 million views just looking at average American households. Do you know that one of the most important things in the American Revolutionary War, what might have actually caused a lot of the trouble that we're in today, this exact event, was the Hessians, the German soldiers that the city of London and the king and everyone paid for to go in the Revolutionary War and fight for Britain against America. When they arrived in America and arrived on Long Island, and it was exactly this scene, they saw these houses, not these ones, this is in Gainesville. They saw huge homes. And they capitulated. They said, we don't want to fight these people. We want to live here. What are you talking about? We wouldn't fight any of these people. That must have been such a wake-up call about the American system and the threat that it posed Europe, that I do believe that just like 250 years ago, when those soldiers arrived and put down their arms, when they lay down their arms and said, we don't want to fight these people because of how rich they are, we want to live like them. They can't be the enemy if they live this well. This case here of another German coming to America and saying that houses in some Gainesville, like I'm a geography expert. I know Gainesville's in Alabama. I don't think I could find it in a map of Alabama that isn't labeled. I mean, I would be guessing, and I know my America. I'm a pretty good American geography guy, world geography guy. But it's just to underline, Gainesville's hardly even, it's not in the top 100 towns in America, not even close. And seeing this story and seeing this frame and what it meant for people and them changing their minds and thinking about it, I think it does make a difference. And we're seeing this stuff here. And that's why it's headed in this direction with Gainesville. And again, this is the sports baller changing their political views. And you're going to get a lot of that. I think this is going to be one of those times with Europe and the state that it's in that you're going to hear the usual Europe complaints when they come to America. Like I just said, right? It's going to be the, it's too, no public transit, stadium was made for football and all that stuff. But I just don't think it's going to have the capacity to continue to persuade. I think what he's talking about with these, 5.3 million views for Waffle House is just great, right? And so when he says it's going to be this insufferable stuff, there'll be a lot of that. Public commentary, but I think you're going to get a lot of the Europores waking up and seeing things differently. And so it's going to be persuasive. So what we've got here is the credentialists getting persuaded. We've got the followers getting persuaded. We've got the sports ballers getting persuaded. The next one here, I think it's important. BTC Plebinator says the architecture in the USA is depressing as fuck compared to Europe. Not gonna lie. The public architecture, sure, but the private homes, it's not even close. It's not even close. Any Euro poor, you know how you can tell how fucked up Europe is. Go to, so I remember on my honeymoon, so I've lived in Europe a few times, right? And generally visit pretty regularly. I went to university in France. I went on my honeymoon in France. I spent the first big Bitcoin market, 2017, hanging out in Antibes for the winter, where we conceived our first child and spent about 3 months living in the south of France. So I've probably been to, I don't know how many times I've been to France in my life, a lot, like over 10 times for at least a week, usually a month. And so it's a place I know really well. I speak perfect French. That's why, well, perfect French. I speak French well enough to be a local and live my life in French. And so I went to the hardware store once there when I was on my honeymoon with my wife, and we were there for a month in Corsica. And so I go to just a hardware store, and I want to put screens, because they have no air conditioning, obviously. It's so hot. I mean, it's 100 and something every day, no air conditioning. I'm up a hill, not a lot of a breeze. I got the water down below, but I got to walk 500 feet or something down a hill and up a hill to get to the private beach. It was a great honeymoon spot. Loved it. But there were mosquitoes, and so we couldn't just leave the doors open at night. So I wanted to just go buy, like you would at any hardware store in America, a screen. I asked if they had screens at the place. They said no. I said, okay, I'm just going to make a screen for myself and I'll install it, and maybe it'll hang with weights or something at the base so it can stay firm on the ground. So I go to the hardware store. Do you know what a European hardware store is like? There's nothing. There's no do-it-yourself anything. It's basically Winners or Bed Bath & Beyond. Everything's already made. There's hardly any tools. There's certainly no just like raw screen that I could use to make my own screen door. There was a couple fans, but really it was like a hobby shop. There was no hardware store. There was no way to build anything. They don't have that kind of stuff. They don't have, like we have in America, a Home Depot where you just go and buy equipment and do home improvements. Everything's already built. So their homes, what they have, right? Some of them are really old. They can't really be modified like our homes can be. They're not really a lot of weekend projects going on over there. That's why it's all the Americans going and buying up all these abandoned homes and abandoned villages and stuff. They literally don't have the skill set. They just can't do it. So, when I think of this architecture, sure, their official state architecture might be better, or their old shit that they built when they were on the gold standard is better. But the average person, their architecture sucks. Some old house or some new shitty apartment versus what people are building in America every day for themselves. So the individual's architecture in America at that scale is much, much better. BTC Plebinator, public transportation is communist, but we do need to get rid of Amtrak in the USA and let Elon build something that actually works. I'm all for that. Yeah, I think the tunnel thing is a good idea. I like his tunnels. I'm a big, the secret to the future is just literally holes. That's the number one tech we need. Holes, Stirling engines and all that stuff. So next, you're going to like this. This is golden age stuff, BTC Plebinator. I know you can't wait to talk about the golden age. But indeed, the last story I have today is about the nihilist. So the nihilist being one other form of NPC that's out there, the nihilist frame, right? The nihilist is generally the person who will say, oh, Bitcoin's corrupted, right? That's how I talk about it in the book on the nihilists. I'll show you what I say about the nihilists, right? This is what I say about the nihilists. Here they are, the nihilists. Lastly, the nihilists, armored with skepticism, their first tales tinged with the bitterness of disbelief. They fear the fallacy of hope, and their enchantment is the cruel comfort of predictable disappointment. Understand this, they require the spell of raw truth, the immutable facts of Bitcoin's design, the reality of its resilience. With them, your journey must be one of intellect, a quest challenging enough to ignite their smothered curiosity. And that is exactly it, right? The idea here of smothered curiosity, of nihilism, of what it means in this case to not be able to see an optimistic future, but to see something else, to see something that is bound to fail, to see something that is uh, let's say polluted irredeemably, right? Polluted irredeemably. And that's what I see when I think about the kind of regime change and the functional resetting of all these incentives around the world, of what's going on in Iran, what's going on with energy. And that's why I can see that what's going on with the US government, with Trump, the biggest story out there, bigger than Iran, bigger than Israel, comes back to what's going on domestically with the Federal Reserve and with the economic system. And I think of it as James E. Thorne does here. And this is my counter to the nihilists out there. The rebirth trade is underway. This isn't politics, it's regime change. America is done subsidizing the world while its factories rust and debt explodes. Hard power equals energy, manufacturing, supply chains, chips, and power grids. The US is bringing it all home. AI isn't hype, and the cycle will be longer than assumed. It's an arms race for hardware, data centers, electrons, and industrial muscle. The age of easy Keynesianism is dead. And that's what fueled this whole system of credentialists, of followers, of sports ballers. That's all the product of Keynesianism, and that's what is dead. Welcome to supply side growth, capex explosion, and a new secular bull market in reindustrialization. Trump isn't the whole story, he's the forcing function. The 250th anniversary isn't a museum piece, it's America choosing renewal over imperial drift. Pax Americana is dying, the American rebirth has begun. Position accordingly. Who's riding the rebirth? Drop your biggest conviction play below. America is back. And again, that is why I created that frame, used it for a long time. The frame being the strange dual nature of America's creation and how it's linked to Bitcoin, and this idea of it being an empire or a revolutionary force, and how it's kind of the same story, empire, revolutionary force. It's, although opposite, very similar at the same time. It's January 3rd and July 4th. These are the actual solar events. This is the perihelion and the aphelion, and why it's important that we think of this birth and death and rebirth and what it all means, and why it's an important frame. Let me find the whiteboard that I've shared with you many times, but that I always think is a good one to re-share when we're talking about these subjects. So many whiteboards. There, this is a good one. Yeah, this is the revolutionary force and imperial power model. And so America is flowing back into this revolutionary force characterization. And when you think about what Saylor just did, you can see that sale and the purchase, the buyback of the Bitcoin, why this is an important subject. And here you see Saylor just showed the market that the machine is evolving from religious accumulation into institutional balance sheet warfare. So again, everything you heard about Keynesianism 2 seconds ago from Thorne and why it's done, and this new rebirth of America, this is the rebirth. And again, it's the rebirth, as you'll see, because this is the psychological engine. We can't run the old system on the Keynesian engine. I just showed you it's broken. The credentialists are broken. The followers are going to stop following. The sports ballers are losing. So the engine breaks. Here, what Saylor did with the sale and the purchase that we see from a few days ago, this is an engine, and Sightbringer describes it exactly as I do, as an engine. and as a psychological engine. He says here, Saylor just showed the market that the machine is evolving from religious accumulation into institutional balance sheet warfare. That is the key. The 32 Bitcoin sale was never the signal. It was bait for people who still read MSTR like a normal stock or Bitcoin cult ticker. They saw a tiny sale and scream betrayal because they think the whole model depends on purity. Saylor is past purity. He is building a capital markets organism. The 1,550 Bitcoin buy proves the accumulation engine remains alive. The 100 million US trash token reserve increase proves the survival architecture is getting stronger. That combination matters because strategy is no longer just trying to maximize Bitcoin held today. It is trying to survive every future liquidity regime while continuing to accumulate through volatility. This is how a treasury machine becomes durable. A weaker version of MSTR would only buy Bitcoin and hope price goes up. The stronger version buys Bitcoin, builds cash reserves, protects credit perception, reassures preferred holders, keeps capital markets open, suppresses FUD, and preserves optionality for the next drawdown. That is what this is. The bears wanted the story to be Saylor had to sell. The actual story is Saylor sold dust, bought size, and fortified the balance sheet. This is an execution flex. The 1 billion US trash token reserve is especially important. People obsessed with Bitcoin purity will miss it because they only want the orange number headline. But the reserve tells institutional capital that strategy is not running like a leveraged degen. It has liquidity, it can service obligations, it can defend structure, it can absorb volatility, it can avoid forced selling, it can keep the machine alive when the market gets ugly. That is what gives the BTC stack time to compound. The deeper read is that MSTR is trying to become the first Bitcoin native credit institution, not a bank in the traditional sense, a capital structure built around Bitcoin as the reserve asset, with USD liquidity as the shock absorber and equity preferred issuance as the acquisition engine. It's an engine. It's literally an engine. He's built an actual psychological engine. That is why every small narrative attack matters. If the market believes the engine is fragile, the premium compresses, financing worsens, and the accumulation loop weakens. If the market believes the engine is durable, capital access improves, BTC per share can keep compounding, and the reflexive flywheel survives. Saylor understands this better than anyone attacking him. He is not only buying Bitcoin, he is managing belief around the entity that buys Bitcoin. That is the real game. The deeper read is that MSTR is becoming a Bitcoin-backed monetary machine with corporate form. It's a psychological engine. BTC reserve is the hard collateral. USD reserve is the liquidity moat. The capital markets program is the engine. Saylor is the belief operator. The stock is the reflexive residual claim. This update says the machine is still alive, still accumulating, and now more institutionally defensible than before. The FUD crowd wanted a crack. They got a balance sheet upgrade. And this is why it's a psychological engine. This is how you can see he's literally calling it that. It's a narrative, motor, engine moving this way. But look at the momentum this has to cultivate Wall Street credentialists. It's huge. This is where the system is headed. The entire economic system that we're building with this new Federal Reserve, with Keynesianism dead, with the American rebirth here, is going to look like this. This is the system. And from there, where do the followers go? The followers follow. It's a new aesthetic. This face isn't, that's not going to work. That's the zero, right? And then the sports ballers come along next as well with all the winning. So, and the winning is picking up, right? Look at the American system winning already. U.S. Steel pledges up to $2.5 billion in upgrades to Mon Valley Works in Pennsylvania. New hot strip mall at Edgar Thompson, replacing an 87-year-old one. Part of 11 billion U.S. trash tokens across the domestic footprint by 2028. America is rebuilding its steel base one plant at a time. We'll see how much further it goes. But again, the psychological engine, you can see the limitations. The Plattner story is great, right? It's another one of those ones that's just from the gods. So just look at the difference here. Look at all of this amplification. Look at the psychological engine when confronted with these two cases. Remember how they tried to end Hex's nomination over this Christian tattoo and it failed? It didn't go anywhere. But of course, they'll pretend that the tattoo, it's funny that it's on the same part of the body too. So it just gives us a perfect example. But here's the psychological engine, again, of what we're looking at. This is what the enemy looks like now. This is the enemy of Bitcoin. It's this lady here, and she's talking about the tattoo and what it means. And it's she doesn't support genocides. She likes the Nazi tattoo. It's just perfect. So it's too weak to bother with. It's too pathetic. It doesn't persuade. It's a zero, right? It's a complete and total zero. And you have to look at how the engine can perpetuate, and it's not gonna make it, I don't think. Wait, hold on here. And hold on. So there you go. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. All right, I'm going to skip a few of these. No sound? No sound. Oh, no. Okay, I'll play it again. You got to hear the sound. It's too good.
And he's been very consistent.
Totem Pope tattoo, the Nazi tattoo. How do you kind of?
Somebody said that they talked to somebody who had seen one of those or wore one of those, and it was silver, and it didn't even occur to him that it was the same thing. I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. And if they did, we'd hear about it. Believe me, they are trolling for dirt.
What if he has like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
For me?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
That would be
Israeli? Yeah, because I don't support genocide, and he doesn't either.
So it's just not going to work out. It's just not going to work out. Other Golden Age news. We got to see what's her slut get denaturalized, the one from Minnesota. This Department of Justice has filed denaturalization actions in various U.S. district courts against 17 individuals accused of serious offenses. This is what you found out when criminal aliens exploit naturalization processes. So folks getting denaturalized, crazy the crimes as well that they're accused of. It's pretty wild here. Fisher King says, if you read the article, the only question is why seeking to revoke the citizenship of a mere 17 people is unprecedented in the first place. We're talking about abusers and the like. Why are we just now going after such people? Exactly. Yeah. Kick them all out. Get them out of here. We don't want any of them around. None of them. All right. Yeah, audio now. She's an idiot. Yeah. Cube says, I thought you had that fixed. Well, there was no, it just got lucky. There's no fixing it. I don't think you can fix it. I don't think there's any fixing it at all. I don't think it's any fixing it. That's it. Let's see what folks are saying. I'll bring up some chat stuff here. Concern Karen. Thanks for everyone. Gainesville. There is a Gainesville, Florida. Yeah, I knew about Gainesville, Florida. Maybe that was where he went. Gainesville. I thought it was Alabama. P-Man Van says if they let him out, it better be information that leads to prosecutions. Absolutely. No. We don't. We want prosecutions, of course, right? We want people using OBS. Yes, using OBS. It's on the screen sharing, something to do with how it screen shares. I don't think it's the studio software. I think there's some weird quirk that comes in when I switch screens for some reason. We don't know why. I've looked into it in a million ways. People just complain about it on the internet. There is no way to fix it, according to everybody. And it's not just, I use Restream as my studio software. It's not just Restream. It's others that do it too. Tough Cookie says, coffee, Nolan, and DCA is the new routine. We love to hear it. Tough Cookie 1940. I appreciate it. Come around. We like it. We like it. Yeah, no concern from the no sound from the concerned Karen. She's my favorite. So that's the. I mean, but this is where I bring her up, not just to make an example of a stupid person, but just to show you that's what happened to the psychological engine. This is what her programming has left her with. Now we're all being programmed, right? We're all being programmed. It's not that she's some person with just dumb ideas. It's the ideas that are finding the way to her head and making connections are dead end streets. As Bitcoiners, we're getting programmed as well by Saylor, by the market, by this and that, and by other Bitcoiners. The difference is we have the capacity in this Bitcoin P2P environment to, first of all, psychologically withstand all the trouble. We see the price action is fucking savage. It sure is. Are we getting trounced this morning again? Yeah, absolutely killed. Absolutely killed. But again, you know how many times we've been through this? And it sucks. I mean, it sucks. It absolutely, and it's worse than ever. This is the worst I've ever experienced it personally. But it's not the first time we have experienced it, and it's been years of this. And so we're getting used to it, and sludge people are not. This is a new experience to them. This is a new experience of who to align with. And remember, people align with power. And so winning creates that incentive to alignment. And we'll get there. Speaking of alignment, let's see if Hank and I get some alignment today. We're aligned on the screen. We are
aligned on the screen.
I see your hair is more aligned than it was when I last saw you. You got a new alignment of the hair.
I did. Got the ears trimmed. I got to say, I came in at an interesting time. I just heard you say this is the worst it's ever been that you could remember. What are you guys talking about?
Oh no, just price action. It was just the amount of selling and capitulations and it's even as someone who works in the industry, like just the events industry, for example, bleak events getting canceled, no money in them.
No money?
Well, I think honestly, Bitcoin, maybe a little bit of that civil war yesterday that Saylor was talking about. I don't know if you saw Saylor put an article yesterday, the archetypes of Bitcoin. So maximalist, technologist, capitalist, and fundamentalist, I think were his 4 archetypes.
I missed that.
They're all kind of fighting each other, and there's the sort of civil war, I guess you can say, inside of Bitcoin. Should it be a Saylor thing, and should it be like plebs holding in their wallets, and what it creates? Yeah. What it creates. When I think of that tension, I guess you can say it's as bad as it's ever been in terms of fighting inside. And what I see happening is, because of the Wall Street stick that Saylor's got, it's wiping out a lot of the other archetypes, right? The privacy Bitcoiners just don't seem to really have much traction. The developer Bitcoiners, everyone in that technologist stack are just kind of getting left behind as it gets sucked into Wall Street. And then the Wall Street narrative's low. So it's like, where do people go? It killed the technologist stuff, or at least took a lot of its energy, and it's not really going that far on its own. So it just feels like stuttering and sputtering. And so all that's happening is Bitcoin is affecting systems, and the systems that it's affecting are absorbing Bitcoin into their vertical and their worldview. Not so much the Bitcoin worldview taking over. It's more like it's affecting these things. So that, I don't know. That's what I mean by bad. Just
you know what view I've seen is taking over right now. I'll be excited to jam with you about it today. The Hunter Biden view. He's the hottest guy next right now.
Hunter Biden stuff. We love Hunter Biden stuff. I told you about it the other day. It's looking more and more like an op, though. It's looking more and more like an op. We'll talk about
it. I can't wait till he starts the scam coin that brings us all together, just like Trump did. And it's great because it'll be awesome when both sides of the aisle have their own BS scam coin. It's so great.
It'll be great.
And who would have thought this is maybe what we needed? We needed villains on both sides of the aisle for us to converge together and agree.
This is what I've been saying forever, man. This is what I've been saying forever. It's a great, from day one with Trump, I said at the very least he can repel people from politics, and that's pretty good. You know,
it's really a shame that Trump isn't a little bit younger or Hunter's a little bit older, because after their time in the public spotlight, I would really like to see one of those like celebrity boxing matches with the two of them.
They would just do a great show together. They should just be on a show like roommates or something, like celebrity. You know, you could see Hunter trying to do some crack and Trump being like,
yeah, Trump doesn't even drink, so that would be like quite the odd couple pairing.
That was my favorite tweet of his last week. Of all the good ones that he put out, was when he was correcting people about no more meth pipes. He smokes crack, and the pipes are different. Enough is enough, he said.
I appreciate a guy that's got a sense of humor about his past. He's like there's something fun to that. So it's wild times in this world, Nolan. We got a lot to break down today.
Awesome,
so we're talking Iran deal, Ebola virus, Crump crypto ventures, Hunter Biden. We got a lot. So I'm excited to bring you on the show today. I'm gonna let you finish up with your crowd here, but I'll see you on Roxham TV News in just a bit, bud.
See ya, Hank. See you there.
See you soon.
All right, folks. You heard Hank. I'll be on over there. Absolutely worst in my 10 years. Yeah, you got it, Ron P. It sucks. Not going great out there. Thanks, Nolan. Always a great awakening. Thank you, Johnny Midas. I appreciate it. Nice to see you, Christine. Glad you made it. Glad you made it. Thank you for your attention to this meth head. Roxham is his only channel, Cubes. Yeah, I think so. I was into watching, but is there no chat there? There is no chat there. No, there is a chat. Yeah, there's a chat. There's a chat. Okay, folks, I'm about to show the logo and the thanks for watching screen. I just want to tell you, thanks for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow. It'll be Wednesday. It'll be another great day. Hopefully, we have more fun news and lots of winning to talk about. Otherwise, we'll still talk about whatever else is going on. All right, peace.